She dove into a stranger's car to escape her uncle's cruelty. The man in the shadows turned out to be the most dangerous criminal in Seoul. Honestly, I didn't know the man sitting in the back of that sleek black sedan was Kang-Min, the Korean crime lord whose name alone made politicians change their schedules and business owners pay protection without being asked. I only knew that Uncle Babatunde, the man who raised me after my parents died, was chasing me through the streets of Gangnam with murder in his eyes because I'd overheard him on the phone selling me to traffickers like I was merchandise with a price tag. If the idea of escaping a family predator only to land in the arms of an underworld dragon makes your pulse quicken, hit that like button. Subscribe right now and tell us your city and the time you're watching, because the decision I make in the next 10 seconds doesn't just change my life, it ends the girl I used to be. The fading bruise on my collarbone was shaped like Babatunde's thumb, a souvenir from last week when I'd asked where my parents' inheritance money had gone. That was my existence, a careful dance around his moods, making myself invisible in my own skin, keeping my voice soft and my questions silent. I stayed because family is supposed to protect you, and he reminded me daily that without him, I had no one in this foreign country where I didn't speak the language fluently. I stayed because he convinced me I owed him my survival. I stayed until last night when I found his phone lighting up on the kitchen counter of our small apartment in Itaewon. She's young, obedient. The Koreans will pay $200,000 for her. Transfer arranged for Friday. That text message shattered every lie I'd swallowed for 18 years. He wasn't just cruel. He was selling me. That cold realization overrode a lifetime of fear conditioning. I waited until dawn when his snoring rattled the thin walls. I slipped out wearing yesterday's clothes and nothing else, no bag, no phone, no plan beyond run. I made it 4 blocks through Seoul's morning rush before I heard his voice cutting through the crowd noise. Damalola. You think you can leave me? I own you. Fear has a way of sharpening your senses while destroying your logic. I pushed through the Gangnam sidewalks, my breath coming in gasps, sweat plastering my blouse to my back despite the cool morning air. Babatunde's rage echoed behind me, getting closer. Pedestrians turned away, uncomfortable with the foreign spectacle. No one intervenes in what looks like family business. I stumbled into the financial district where gleaming towers of glass and steel stretched toward the sky. This wasn't my world. These pristine streets and luxury boutiques belonged to people who lived above the violence I was drowning in. I was just a Nigerian girl who didn't belong, running from the only family she had left. That's when I saw it. A black sedan idling at the curb outside a high-rise building, its engine purring like a sleeping panther. Tinted windows. Chrome accents catching the harsh morning sun. The rear door stood slightly open, as if fate itself had left it unlocked. Babatunde's shouting grew louder. I'll drag you back by your hair. I didn't think. Thinking was a luxury I couldn't afford. I ran to that car and threw myself inside, tumbling onto leather seats that smelled like expensive cologne and something darker, power, danger, secrets kept in shadows. The door shut behind me with a solid, final click. Darkness. Silence. And then, I realized I wasn't alone. A man sat in the shadows beside me. I could barely make out his features in the dim light filtering through the tinted windows, but I felt the weight of his presence like atmospheric pressure before a storm. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than a year of my uncle's rent. His hands rested calmly on his knees, no wedding ring, just a single silver watch that caught the light when he moved. He didn't look surprised to find a terrified stranger in his car. He looked assessing. Outside, Babatunde reached the window, his face twisted with rage, fist raised to pound the glass. I flinched, instinct preparing me for the pain that always followed his anger. The man lifted one hand, slowly, deliberately, and placed it between me and the window. A barrier. A wall. Don't be scared, he whispered. His voice was ice and silk. Terrifyingly calm. The car pulled away from the curb so smoothly I barely felt the motion. Babatunde's screaming face shrunk in the rear window until Seoul's traffic swallowed him whole. I pressed myself against the leather seat, afraid to breathe too loudly. The man said nothing. He simply gazed out the window as if I weren't trembling beside him, as if he picked up desperate runaways every morning before breakfast. I studied him from the corner of my eye. Sharp jawline. Dark hair slicked back perfectly. Eyes that seemed to see through the city itself. There was something ancient in the way he held stillness, like a blade resting in its sheath. Who is he? The drive lasted 20 minutes, but felt like 20 seconds. We descended into an underground garage beneath a glass tower that pierced the Seoul skyline. The concrete walls gleamed under fluorescent lights. The car rolled to a stop. The door opened. 3 men in black suits stood waiting. When my mysterious savior stepped out, they bowed, not a casual nod, but a deep, reverent bow that spoke of hierarchy and fear. He said something in rapid Korean. I caught my name, Damalola. One of the men gestured toward the elevator. I followed on shaking legs, my bare feet soundless on the polished floor. No one questioned my presence. No one asked who I was. We rose 43 floors in silence. The penthouse was a study in contradictions, minimalist furniture against floor-to-ceiling windows that framed Seoul like a living painting. Dark wood. Clean lines. Power disguised as simplicity. A woman appeared, older, with kind eyes. She led me down a hallway to a bedroom larger than the entire apartment I'd shared with Babatunde. Soft bed. Clean clothes laid out, expensive brands, perfectly my size. A bathroom with marble counters and towels that smelled like jasmine. Rest, she said in accented English. You're safe now. But was I? I locked the door and sat on the edge of the bed, my mind racing. I'd escaped one cage. Had I just entered another? Hours passed. Someone brought food on a silver tray, bulgogi, rice, soup that steamed with comfort I didn't trust myself to feel. I ate mechanically, tasting nothing. As night fell, I turned on the television, desperate for distraction. The news anchor spoke in Korean, but the images needed no translation. Warehouse raid. Body bags. Police surrounding a building in Incheon. The ticker at the bottom scrolled in English. Major trafficking operation dismantled. Multiple arrests. One suspect dead. They showed a photo. Babatunde. My hands went numb. The remote clattered to the floor. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't luck. The man in the car had done this. Within hours of finding me, he'd erased my uncle from existence like wiping dust from a table. Who is he? What have I walked into? A knock at the door made me jump. The kind woman stood there, her expression unreadable. Kang-Min requests your presence, she said quietly. He's waiting in his study. My heart hammered against my ribs. The dragon wanted to speak. The study was a cavern of shadows and city lights. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Seoul's glittering skyline, but the room itself remained dim, lit only by a single desk lamp that cast long shadows across leather-bound books and dark wooden shelves. The air smelled like aged whiskey and something sharper. Danger, maybe. Or secrets. Kang-Min stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back, silhouetted against the city he seemed to own. Sit, he said without turning. I hesitated, then lowered myself into the chair facing his desk. My hands twisted in my lap. He turned slowly, and for the first time, I saw him clearly. Sharp features that could have been carved from stone. Eyes dark enough to drown in. He couldn't have been much older than 30, but he carried himself like a man who'd lived a dozen lifetimes. Why did you save me? The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Kang-Min walked to his desk, each step measured and deliberate. He poured amber liquid into 2 glasses, slid one across the polished surface toward me. I don't like men who sell what they don't own. His voice was quiet, almost conversational, but it carried the weight of absolute certainty. You killed him. It wasn't a question. I removed a problem. He lifted his glass, studying the whiskey in the lamplight. Your uncle offended me. You didn't even know me. I didn't need to. His gaze locked onto mine, and I felt pinned, a butterfly under glass. Some men believe they can buy and sell human beings like livestock. They operate in my city, using my ports, breathing my air. That offends me. The intensity in his eyes unsettled me. But underneath the fear, something else stirred. Curiosity. Fascination with this calm, controlled violence disguised as civility. What happens to me now? I whispered. Kang-Min set down his glass and moved closer, stopping just at the edge of my personal space. Close enough that I could smell his cologne, cedar and smoke. You are safe here, he said. No one will touch you. No one will trade you. No one will hurt you. He paused. Unless you choose to leave. And if I choose to leave? Then you leave. His expression didn't change. I don't keep prisoners, Damalola. The way he said my name, slowly, deliberately, like he was tasting each syllable, sent a shiver down my spine. We stood there in the lamplight, the silence stretching between us like a live wire. His eyes held mine, and for a moment, I forgot to be afraid. I forgot about Babatunde, about running, about the news reports showing body bags. All I could see was the man who'd whispered, "Don't be scared," and meant it. Why? I asked again, softer this time. Why protect a stranger? Something flickered across his face, too quick to name. Because I can, he said simply. And because men like your uncle shouldn't win. He stepped back, breaking the spell. Your room is yours for as long as you need it. Rest. Recover. We'll speak again tomorrow. It was a dismissal. I stood on shaking legs and walked to the door. My hand touched the handle when his voice stopped me. Damalola. I turned. You're not a transaction. Remember that. I couldn't sleep. Hours later, I found myself wandering the penthouse's quiet hallways, drawn back toward the study like a moth to flame. The door stood slightly ajar, lamplight spilling into the corridor. He wasn't there. But something on his desk caught my eye. A file folder. Thick. Official-looking. My name was written on the tab. My hands trembled as I stepped closer, knowing I shouldn't, unable to stop myself. I opened it. The first page made my blood run cold. Debt transfer agreement. Creditor, Babatunde Okonkwo. Debtor, Damalola Okonkwo. Amount, 200 million Korean wons. Status, paid. Transferee, Kang-Min. The date was yesterday. The signature was his. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages. Transaction records. Bank transfers. Legal documents stamped with official seals. Each page told the same story in cold, clinical detail. Babatunde had been in debt to a Korean crime syndicate for years. Gambling losses. Failed business ventures. Money borrowed and never repaid. And when he couldn't pay, he'd offered collateral. Me. The words blurred as tears burned my eyes. Debt transfer. Human collateral. Asset acquisition. I was listed like property. Like furniture. Like something with a price tag that could be bought and sold. And Kang-Min had bought me. The room spun. I gripped the desk edge, my breath coming in ragged gasps. All his pretty words about not liking men who sell what they don't own, lies. All of it. He'd done the exact same thing. He'd just paid more. I'd escaped one cage only to find myself in another, this one wrapped in expensive leather and false kindness. You shouldn't go through other people's belongings. I whirled around. Kang-Min stood in the doorway, still wearing his suit from earlier, expression unreadable. You bought me. My voice cracked. You stood in that room and told me I wasn't a transaction, and the entire time, I threw the file at him. Papers scattered across the floor like damning evidence. You're no different than Babatunde. He didn't flinch. Didn't move to pick up the papers. Just watched me with those dark, unfathomable eyes. You saved me so you could own me, I continued, anger replacing hurt, giving me strength. Was that the plan? Rescue the desperate girl. Make her grateful. Make her. Stop. One word. Quiet. Final. But I couldn't stop. Years of silence, of swallowing words, of being told I owed my existence to cruel men, it all came pouring out. I trusted you. I thought you were different. But you're just another man who thinks he can buy women like. Kang-Min crossed the room in 3 strides. For a moment, I thought he'd strike me. It's what I was used to, what every man in my life had taught me words earned. Instead, he gathered the scattered papers with careful precision. He walked to the fireplace I hadn't noticed, dark and cold in the corner of the study. He pulled a gold lighter from his pocket. What are you doing? I whispered. He set the papers in the fireplace and lit them. Flames consumed the debt transfer agreement, the collateral documents, the transaction records. My name as property turned to ash before my eyes. I bought the debt, Kang-Min said quietly, watching the fire so that no one else could own you. Not even me. The papers curled and blackened, edges glowing orange. Your uncle owed money to the Zhao syndicate. They were coming to collect. They would have taken you, used you, destroyed you. He turned to face me, flames reflected in his eyes. I intercepted the transaction. I paid the debt. And now, he gestured to the burning ledger, it no longer exists. Why? The word came out broken. Because men like your uncle shouldn't win, he repeated. And because you deserved a choice. I stared at the ashes, my anger deflating into something more complicated. Confusion. Tentative hope. Fear of believing him. You're free, Damilola, Kang-Min said. You always were. The papers just made it official enough that the Zhao family couldn't claim otherwise. Then why keep the file? Evidence. Insurance. Protection. He met my gaze. I operate in a world of contracts and debts. Sometimes the only way to free someone is to hold the chain yourself, then break it. Before I could respond, a sharp alarm pierced the silence. Kang-Min's expression shifted instantly, from calm to lethal focus. Red lights flashed in the hallway. His phone buzzed with rapid-fire messages. What's happening? My heart hammered. He was already moving toward the door, pressing his phone to his ear, speaking rapid Korean. He turned back to me, his face grim. The Zhao syndicate just declared war. The penthouse transformed into a war room within minutes. Armed men materialized from hallways I didn't know existed. Phones rang constantly. Kang-Min stood at the center of controlled chaos, issuing orders in clipped Korean, his calm exterior now edged with something sharp and dangerous. I pressed myself against the study wall, invisible, forgotten. Until a man walked through the door. He was older than Kang-Min, maybe 50, with silver threading through his black hair and a scar cutting through his left eyebrow. His suit was expensive, his smile was not. So this is the girl, he said in perfect English, studying me like a specimen under glass. The Nigerian niece who started a war. Damilola, meet Zhao Wei, Kang-Min said flatly. Advisor to the Zhao syndicate. He's here under temporary truce. Temporary, Zhao Wei agreed, still smiling that cold smile. We wanted to deliver a message in person. Professional courtesy. Speak, Kang-Min said. Zhao Wei turned his attention back to me. Your uncle owed us money. We had an arrangement, a transaction already negotiated. Then Kang-Min interfered, paid the debt, eliminated our associate, and disrupted our operations. He tilted his head. Do you understand what you are now, girl? Your leverage. A weakness. The reason my family will dismantle his empire piece by piece. Ice flooded my veins. She's under my protection, Kang-Min said quietly. Touch her, and I'll burn everything you've built to the ground. But that's the beauty of it. Zhao Wei's smile widened. We don't need to touch her. We just need her to exist. Your enemies are already circling, wondering why the great Kang-Min suddenly has a vulnerability. How long before someone uses her against you? Kang-Min moved between us, a wall of controlled violence. Get out. Zhao Wei bowed mockingly and walked to the door. He paused at the threshold. Enjoy the gala tomorrow night, Kang-Min. I hear it's going to be unforgettable. He glanced at me one last time. Pretty cage you've built for her. I wonder how long before she realizes she's still trapped. The door closed. Silence pressed down like a physical weight. He's right, I whispered. I'm a target now. I've made you vulnerable. Kang-Min turned, and for the first time, I saw something raw in his expression. Not anger, something deeper. You didn't ask for this, he said. Neither did you. I stepped forward, my decision crystallizing. Let me leave. Send me somewhere far away. End this before it starts. No. Why? I'm not worth a war. That's not your decision to make. His voice was steel wrapped in silk. The Zhao family declared war the moment they tried to own you. Whether you're here or in hiding, they'll use you as an excuse to attack. The only difference is whether you face it as a prisoner or as someone under my protection. I met his gaze, searching for manipulation, for the trap I'd learned to expect from men. I found only brutal honesty. "I can't fight," I said quietly. "I can't shoot a gun or throw a punch. I'm useless in a war." "You survived 18 years under a man who tried to break you," Kang-Min said. "You ran when running seemed impossible. You're stronger than you think, Damalola." The words settled into the cracks fear had carved into my chest. "If I stay," I said slowly, "I'm not hiding in this room while you fight battles I caused. I need to understand your world. Learn how to protect myself." I lifted my chin. "Teach me." Something shifted in his expression, respect, maybe, or surprise. "Are you sure?" I thought about Babatunde's cage. About years of silence and bruises and becoming invisible. "I'm tired of being afraid," I said. "I'm tired of being something that happens to. If there's going to be a war, I choose to face it standing up." Kang-Min studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded once, a gesture of acceptance. "Then we prepare." The invitation arrived the next morning on thick, cream-colored cardstock with gold-embossed lettering. "The Golden Dragon Charity Gala. Tomorrow evening. Black tie required." "A trap?" I asked, holding the elegant death sentence. "Undoubtedly," Kang-Min said. "Which is why we're going." The dress was midnight blue silk that moved like water against my skin. I barely recognized the woman staring back from the mirror. Hair swept up in an elegant twist. Makeup applied by professionals who'd transformed fear into confidence with brushes and powder. Diamond earrings, borrowed, I assumed, caught the light like captured stars. I looked like I belonged in Kang-Min's world. The illusion was almost convincing. "Ready?" Kang-Min appeared in the doorway, devastating in a black tuxedo that fit him like a second skin. His eyes traveled over me slowly, and something flickered in their depths. "You look," he paused. "Dangerous." "Good," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "That's the idea." The Grand Hyatt ballroom glittered like a dragon's hoard. Crystal chandeliers. Ice sculptures. Men in tuxedos and women in gowns worth more than most people earned in a year. Classical music floated through air thick with expensive perfume and expensive lies. These weren't businessmen. They were predators in formal wear. Kang-Min's hand rested lightly on my lower back as we descended the marble staircase. Eyes tracked us, curious, assessing, hungry. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wind through grass. "Smile," he murmured. "You're supposed to be enjoying yourself." I forced my lips to curve, playing the part of the mysterious woman on the crime lord's arm. A man approached, tall, Western, with cold blue eyes and a smile that never reached them. "Kang-Min." What a surprise. His English carried a British accent. "We heard you might not attend, given recent complications." "Marcus Chin," Kang-Min said evenly. "Still doing the Zhao family's diplomatic work, I see. Someone has to keep the peace." Marcus's gaze slid to me. "And who is this lovely creature?" "Mine," Kang-Min said simply. The possessiveness should have bothered me. Instead, it felt like armor. Marcus raised his glass in mock toast. "Bold choice, bringing your weakness to a room full of enemies." "Or bringing my strength," Kang-Min countered. They stared at each other, smiling like wolves. The evening crawled forward with excruciating tension. I stayed close to Kang-Min as he navigated conversations laden with double meanings and veiled threats. Every handshake was a potential attack. Every smile hid calculation. I watched, learned, studied the subtle hierarchies and power plays. That's when I noticed it. A red dot, thin as a laser pointer, dancing across the crowd, searching. It found Kang-Min's chest, right over his heart. Time fractured into slow-motion horror. I saw the dot steady. Saw the sniper somewhere above us lining up the shot. Saw Kang-Min mid-conversation, unaware, vulnerable. My body moved before my mind caught up. I slammed into him, hands shoving his chest with desperate strength. He stumbled backward. The gunshot cracked through music and laughter. The champagne glass in his hand exploded. Crystal shrapnel. Wine like blood spray. Then chaos. Screaming. Stampeding bodies. Tables overturning. Kang-Min grabbed my wrist, his expression transformed from shock to lethal focus. He pulled me toward the service entrance as more shots punched through the ornate windows. Glass rained down like deadly snow. His security materialized, returning fire, creating a protective corridor. We ran. Through marble hallways. Past terrified staff. Down emergency stairs that echoed with our footsteps and distant gunfire. "Stay close," Kang-Min commanded, his grip on my hand unbreakable. We burst into the underground parking garage. His driver already had the car running, not the sedan from before, but an armored SUV built like a tank. We threw ourselves inside. Bullets sparked off the reinforced exterior as we peeled out, tires screaming. I pressed against the seat, heart hammering, adrenaline making my hands shake. "You saved my life," Kang-Min said quietly. I turned to look at him. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes held something I'd never seen before. Wonder, gratitude, and something deeper that made my breath catch. "You said I was stronger than I thought," I managed. "Guess you were right." The ghost of a smile touched his lips. Then his phone rang. He answered in rapid Korean, his expression darkening with each second. "What?" I asked when he hung up. "The penthouse is compromised. We can't go back." "Then where?" "Somewhere no one knows about," he said. "A place I built for exactly this scenario." The SUV plunged into Seoul's neon-lit night, carrying us toward shadows and safety. Or perhaps toward the eye of the storm. The safe house was a converted shipping container at the Incheon docks. From the outside, it looked abandoned, rusted metal, faded paint, forgotten among hundreds of identical containers stacked like industrial Legos. Inside, it had been transformed into something functional: reinforced walls, emergency supplies, weapons cache hidden beneath false flooring. A fortress disguised as decay. The driver locked the door behind us and disappeared into the night. Silence pressed in, broken only by distant foghorns and our ragged breathing. "Let me see your arm," Kang-Min said. I hadn't noticed the blood until he pointed it out. A shallow cut where glass shrapnel had sliced through silk and skin during our escape. "It's nothing," I said. "Sit." I obeyed, too exhausted to argue. He retrieved a first aid kit, pulled up a metal crate as a stool, and began cleaning the wound with surprising gentleness. His hands were steady. Mine still trembled. "You didn't have to do that," he said quietly, not looking at me. "At the gala. You could have run. Should have. You would have died." "I've been prepared to die for years." He wrapped gauze around my arm with practiced precision. "It's part of the job description." "Well, I wasn't prepared to watch it happen," I said. "Call me selfish." His hands stilled. He looked up, and in the dim light of the single bulb overhead, I saw something raw in his expression. "You confuse me," he admitted. "Most people in my world operate on fear or greed. You operate on something else entirely. Survival instinct? Compassion." He said the word like it was foreign. "Dangerous. It's going to get you killed. Or it's going to keep you alive." We sat there, his hands still resting on my bandaged arm, close enough that I could see gold flecks in his dark eyes. "Why did you really help me?" I whispered. The truth this time. Kang-Min's jaw tightened. For a moment, I thought he wouldn't answer. "Because when you dove into my car," he said finally, "you looked at me without recognition. Without fear of who I was. Just desperate hope that a stranger might be kind." His thumb traced an absent circle on my wrist. "No one has looked at me like that in 10 years. The air between us felt charged, heavy with words unspoken. "Kang-Min." The container door slammed shut with mechanical finality. Locks engaged. Heavy. Final. Electronic. We both froze. Kang-Min was on his feet instantly, weapon drawn, moving to the door. He tried the manual override. Nothing. His expression went cold and lethal as realization struck. "The driver," he said quietly. Outside, engines rumbled to life. Footsteps. Many of them. The metallic click of weapons being readied. Through the small reinforced window I saw them, at least a dozen armed men forming a perimeter. And in the center, supervising with a satisfied smile, our driver, phone pressed to his ear. "We're trapped," I breathed. Kang-Min moved with calculated efficiency, pulling up the false floor, retrieving weapons. He checked his gun, loaded a second, turned to me. "There's an emergency hatch in the ceiling," he said, voice utterly calm despite the death sentence surrounding us. When I engage them, you climb through, run for the fence line. Don't look back. What? No. He pressed a gun into my hands. The safety is here. Point and squeeze. Ammunition in the grip. I'm not leaving you here to die. Damalola. He gripped my shoulders, his eyes fierce. You saved my life tonight. Let me return the favor. By sacrificing yourself? That's not. I've lived in darkness my entire life, he interrupted. But you still have light in you. Don't let me be the reason it goes out. Tears burned my eyes. There has to be another way. Outside, a voice called out in Korean. An ultimatum, judging by the tone. Kang-Min cupped my face with surprising tenderness. If you survive this, live the life your uncle tried to steal. Promise me. Kang-Min. He kissed my forehead, brief, final, achingly gentle. Then he moved to the door, weapon ready, shoulders squared. When I open this, he said without turning, you run. Don't argue. Don't hesitate. Just run. His hand touched the door handle. My heart screamed in protest, but my voice was frozen. The door swung open. Kang-Min stepped into the killing field alone. I didn't run. Every instinct Bubatunde had beaten into me screamed to obey, to flee, to survive by making myself small and invisible. But something stronger overrode 18 years of conditioning. I refused to lose him. Gunfire erupted outside, controlled bursts from Kang-Min's weapon, the chaotic spray of return fire. I heard his voice shouting in Korean, commanding, defiant. I looked up at the emergency hatch, then at the gun in my shaking hands. You're stronger than you think. I made my choice. Instead of climbing through the hatch to escape, I climbed up, using storage shelves as a ladder, hauling myself onto the container's roof. The night air hit me, cold and sharp, carrying the smell of salt water and gunpowder. The docks stretched before me, a maze of stacked containers, massive cranes looming like metal giants against the pre-dawn sky. Below, Kang-Min had taken cover behind a cargo crate. Bodies already littered the ground. His aim was surgical, lethal. But there were too many. They were closing in, coordinating, pinning him down. And there I saw him. The driver. The traitor. He crept along the far side of the containers, circling behind Kang-Min's position. In his hands, a rifle with a scope. Kang-Min didn't see him. Couldn't see him. The driver raised the weapon, lining up the shot on Kang-Min's exposed back. Terror crystallized into clarity. I ran across the container roof, my heels long abandoned, bare feet silent on metal. I reached the edge and jumped, a desperate, reckless leap that landed me on the adjacent container, then another, getting closer to the massive dock crane. The control cabin hung 20 feet above the ground, accessible by a rusty ladder. I climbed. My arms screamed. My lungs burned. But I climbed. The cabin door hung open. Inside, levers and controls I didn't understand. Except one, the master swing mechanism, clearly labeled with warning symbols. A shipping container dangled from the crane's cable, suspended directly above the trader's position. I grabbed the lever. Please work, I whispered. I pulled. The crane groaned. The cable swung. The massive container, 20 tons of steel, arced through the air like a wrecking ball. The trader heard it at the last second. Looked up. Too late. The container crushed him with brutal finality, metal shrieking against concrete. His rifle clattered away, useless. Silence fell like a curtain. Then Kang-Min moved. He emerged from cover with terrifying precision, no longer defensive, but hunting. The remaining attackers broke formation, realizing their advantage had died with their coordinator. Kang-Min showed no mercy. Each shot was surgical. Final. Justice delivered in gunpowder and lead. When the last body fell, the docks went quiet except for distant sirens and lapping water. I climbed down from the crane on shaking legs, my silk gown torn and blood-stained, my hands blistered from the climb. Kang-Min stood in the center of the carnage, weapon lowered, searching. His eyes found me. I watched emotions cascade across his face, shock, relief, disbelief, something deeper that made my breath catch. He closed the distance between us in seconds. You didn't run, he said, voice rough. No. You saved me. Again. Yes. He dropped to one knee before me, this powerful, dangerous man kneeling in the ruins of battle like a knight before his queen. I told you to run, he said quietly. I ordered you to save yourself. I don't take orders well, I managed, my voice trembling. I thought you would have figured that out by now. His hand found mine, gripped tight enough to anchor me to reality. You could have died. So could you. I squeezed back. I told you I wasn't going to hide anymore. I meant it. Kang-Min looked up at me, and in his eyes I saw devotion, wonder, and something that felt dangerously close to love. You're not a victim, he whispered. You're a warrior. I'm a woman who chose to fight, I corrected. There's a difference. Dawn broke over the Incheon docks, painting blood and metal in shades of gold and crimson. Sirens grew louder, Kang-Min's people arriving to clean up the aftermath. He rose, still holding my hand, and together we watched the sunrise over the wreckage of the war that had tried to destroy us. It's over, I said. Not quite. He turned to face me, eyes serious. Now comes the hardest part. What's that? Deciding what we build from the ashes. 3 weeks later, Seoul looked different through penthouse windows. Or perhaps I was the one who had changed. The Zhao syndicate had fractured after the dock massacre. Marcus Chin disappeared, fled to Singapore, rumors said. Their remaining lieutenants sued for peace, offering tribute and territory in exchange for survival. Kang-Min accepted with the cold pragmatism of a man who knew when victory was complete. The traitors within his organization had been identified and removed. Not violently, Kang-Min was too strategic for revenge killings, but efficiently. They simply ceased to exist in his world, erased like entries from a ledger. The city's underworld had a new equilibrium. And I stood at its center, no longer invisible. I found Kang-Min on the balcony as the sun set over Seoul, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. He'd shed his suit jacket, sleeves rolled up, looking almost peaceful. You've been avoiding me, I said, stepping beside him. Giving you space, he corrected. You've been through trauma. I didn't want to assume. Assume what? He turned to face me, and I saw vulnerability in his eyes, this dangerous man suddenly unsure. That you'd want to stay, he said quietly. The war is over. You're free. You can go anywhere, be anyone. Build the life you deserved all along. My heart clenched. And if the life I want is here? Here. He searched my face. With a criminal? In a world built on violence and shadows. With a man who protected me when he didn't have to, I said. Who burned a ledger to set me free? Who taught me I was stronger than my fear? I stepped closer. Yes. Here. Kang-Min reached into his pocket, his hand trembling slightly, the only sign of nerves I'd ever seen from him. He pulled out a ring. Heavy platinum, engraved with a dragon coiled around Korean characters. A family crest worn smooth by generations. This belonged to my grandfather, he said. And his father before him. In my world, this ring means power. Authority. Legacy. He held it between us like an offering. I'm not asking you to be my possession, Damalola. I'm asking you to be my equal. The weight of the moment pressed down, not suffocating, but grounding. Your world nearly killed us both, I said softly. I know. Your enemies will never stop seeing me as weakness. Then we'll teach them to see you as I do. His eyes held mine. As strength. As fire. As someone who swings shipping containers at traders and doesn't flinch. Despite everything, I laughed, a sound that felt foreign and wonderful. I looked at the ring, at Kang-Min, at the city sprawling below us. A city that had witnessed my terror and my transformation. I thought about the girl who dove into a stranger's car 3 weeks ago, desperate, broken, convinced she was worth nothing more than the price men put on her. That girl was gone. In her place stood a woman who'd learned to fight. Who'd discovered strength in choosing to stay rather than running. Who'd found power not in being saved, but in saving herself and the dragon who'd first whispered, "Don't be scared." Yes, I said. Kang-Min slid the ring onto my finger, a perfect fit, as if it had been waiting for me. He pulled me close, pressing his forehead to mine, breathing like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. You're not my rescue, he whispered. And you're not my cage, I answered. What are we then? I looked out at Seoul, our city now, our empire, our choice. We're whatever we decide to build. The penthouse lights blazed behind us as night claimed the sky. Somewhere in the city, deals were made, power shifted, the underworld continued its eternal dance. But on that balcony, I stood beside a man I'd chosen freely, wearing a ring that meant partnership rather than property. I'd run from one monster who tried to own me. I'd found a dragon who taught me to become fire. And I'd learned the most important truth of all. I did not hide in that car to be saved. I hid there to be reborn. The girl who escaped is dead. Long live the queen.